Oh, you better believe I'm really excited for today's episode of Carving Up Live. Obviously, based on what I'm wearing today, the hoodie I'm wearing today, going to talk about my beloved Golden State Warriors getting a big-time win on the road against the Los Angeles Lakers. Why last night showed you exactly what I said last night is going to be true, that if healthy, Golden State Warriors are going to make a run to the 2026 NBA title. Last night, you saw glimpses of it as a continuation from last season. Also talk about Rockets Thunder, crazy double overtime wild finish. KD making his return, one of his many returns to Oklahoma City, this time with the Rockets. While last night showed you the difference between a really good playoff team in Houston and a champion in Oklahoma City. Also going to have Josh Tariff, who's a Gryd Network contributor, on the show to talk about his takeaways from opening night, talk about the Colts, can they sustain what they're doing, talk about the Lions, is Dan Campbell the best culture builder in the NFL, talk about some potential MVP storylines in the NFL. Sean Payton, Russell Wilson, there's a beef. Russell's responding to Sean Payton. I love it. Bryson's best 10, my top 10 teams going into week 8. And of course, at the end of the show, predictions for Vikings and Chargers on Thursday Night Football. So of course, as always on a Wednesday, Carving Up is absolutely loaded. So let's drop the beat, baby. Here we go. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Carving It Up Live right here on YouTube as well as on X, Facebook, and on Instagram. I'm Bryson Carver, and I'm happy to be here today. I mean, how could you not be? After how then Golden State Warriors looked last night. Obviously, as you heard in the open, going to talk about them in just a moment. Like I said, Josh Tariff, Gryd Network contributor, he's going to be stopping by in about a half hour to talk about some of the major storylines from opening night. Last night, you got a number of big circumstances and situations regarding the Indianapolis Colts and their offense and how they've been rolling. Is that sustainable? I'll talk about that with him. The Detroit Lions playing unbelievable football. Dan Campbell. I said it yesterday in the show, and I'll upload it as a YouTube clip pretty soon. But then I'll talk about this with Josh, but I think Dan Campbell's almost become an underrated head coach, which I'll touch on later on the show. We've got tons to get into, so let's not waste any time talking about what is quite simply, our team that is quite simply, excuse me, run the National Basketball Association for the last decade. But first, them Golden State Warriors looked pretty good last night at the Crypto.com arena, formerly called the Staples Center. Let's be honest, we all kind of call it the Staples Center. We'll touch on the Lakers later. But on the Warriors side of it, I know people are like, well, Bryson, come on, LeBron wasn't there. And obviously it would have been a whole different ball game. I'm not sure it would have been a different outcome, but it would have been a different ball game if LeBron James was out there. Luka would not have had to shoulder the low. We'll talk about Luka, JJ Redick, and some of those stories with the Lakers a little bit later. But for Golden State, here's what I loved about last night. Absolutely love. Because I talked about yesterday when I said, knock on wood for health, I'm the biggest knock on wood in the history of the show, and I'm keep doing it because I want it to happen. If Steph Curry, Jimmy Butler, Draymond Green are healthy, this team is going to win the championship in 2026. I said that last night, staking my claim to it. Certainly, I feel great about that today. We got a long way to go. It's game 1 of 82, and then you got a big playoff run coming up starting in April. But Steph was pretty good. Steph was actually really good in the defensive end. He had 3 steals. He had a block in the fourth quarter and a 3-point shot. Steph was solid defensively. Obviously, he hit the dagger. I wish he'd have done the night-night, but that's okay. He can save that for later in the season. But Steph was fine. 23 points, relatively efficient, although he would like to bump those numbers up to a certain degree. Draymond Green did his thing on the defensive end. What I loved about last night was 2 individuals in particular, because we see the depth. We see guys like Buddy Hield hitting 5 threes off the bench. We see guys like this kid. Listen, y'all know as a Vols fan, you see my Vols stuff over there. Y'all know I don't get Florida Gators love on the show, but that kid we got, Will Richard, like him a lot. I think we may have gotten a nice little steal. Had a long career at Florida by college basketball standards. Played pretty well off the bench last night and played pretty good for us in the preseason as well. So I like him. Al Horford, did what he could, grabbed some rebounds. It was 2 individuals. Jimmy Butler. Can we show you what Jimmy Butler did last night against the Lakers, leading the Warriors in scoring? 31 points, 5 rebounds, 4 assists, shot 50% from the field, 50 from 3, although he only took 2 attempts, 16 for 16 from the free throw line. And I said this last year, what Jimmy Butler provides this team, on the face value, and something that I implored and kept going over and over and over on this with the Warriors last year. Guys, Mike Dunleavy Jr., get Steph Curry a number 2 guy. Get him a guy that can take the offensive load off him to where Steph does have the ball every single possession, to where Steph isn't getting triple teamed in late fourth quarter games because no one else on the floor. Andrew Wiggins does not scare you. Obviously, Jimmy Butler does. But the 16 for 16 from the line, because he drives so much to the basket, he's going to get to, Luka does this. He's going to get to the basket. He's going to get to the free throw line. Take a breather, slow down the tempo. Jimmy, you knock down your free throws. And then you go from there. So it conserves Steph's energy, so he has more for later in the game. It conserves the Warriors' defense, lets them get their defense set, which has made them a better defensive team. So Jimmy Butler's impact on the Warriors goes well beyond scoring. Yes, he can score. We know he can give you the occasional 30-point game. We know that he's capable of playoff Jimmy games, although we didn't necessarily see that last year. I think his health, that injury in game 2 against Houston might have hampered him in that regard. We'll see what happens this postseason when we get there. But that's what Jimmy Butler provides to this team. And Jimmy actually talked after the game. This is one of the other reasons, I think, just a small reason why I think the Warriors are going to win the title. The vibes on this team are just off the charts. Like, Warriors fans know the Jimmy Butler and Buddy Hield dynamic is pure comedy. It's phenomenal. Even at the end of his presser, we don't have the clip here, but the presser, Jimmy says, "Hate you, buddy." Like, it's just a funny dynamic. This is Jimmy Butler talking about how during the offseason when the Warriors were, hanging out at Jimmy's house and playing basketball and having some wine and playing dominoes or something along those lines, Jimmy Butler talking about a competition and a bet he made with Draymond about his free throw shooting.
16 at the line. What do you want to shoot percentage-wise?
What do I want to shoot? I got a bet with I don't think it's a bad bet, but it's kind of a bad bet. With Dre, that I got to shoot a better percentage than number 30 on our team. Yeah, right? Ooh. Yeah, so.
You think you can?
Of course I think I can.
Well, so far off to a pretty good start, although both of them are 100% from the free throw line this year. Steph was 8 for 8 for it last night. Jimmy Butler doubled that, 16 for 16. So, listen, if Jimmy Butler ends up winning the free throw title for the Warriors over Steph Curry, then he'll have had one of the best offensive seasons of all time, at least in Warriors history. But aside from that, one of the big sort of wild card questions for this Warriors team was this, because we know what Steph's going to give you, Draymond's going to give you, Jimmy Butler's going to give you. We know what the veterans like an Al Horford, like a DeAnthony Melton, even to a certain degree, we know what some of the younger guys like a Brandon Pajemski and Moses Moody, we know what they're going to bring to the table. Quentin Post to a certain degree. The ultimate wild card was the guy who is probably, there's no probably on the first part, is the most athletic player on the Warriors, might be the most naturally gifted player in the Warriors outside of Steph, Jonathan Kuminga. And there was, Warriors fans know, NBA fans know, long stalemate over the course of this offseason, ranged from the start of free agency up until literally weeks ago. Jonathan Kuminga getting locked in to a deal with Golden State. And there's still rumors, the Warriors are going to trade him or whatever. We got to see how that plays itself out. Jonathan Kuminga's role with the Warriors has always been a matter of fit, because he's not a natural shooter. He's a good defender who maybe could add, a little bit more effort on the defensive end. A lot of times, and Steve Kerr talked about this after the game, he'll take the ball into a double team in the post, which drives me crazy every time he does as the Warriors fan, because he either throws up an off-balance shot, a wild shot, or he turns it over, and we just wasted a possession. He can be a bit ball dominant, and that's not Steve Kerr's system. If last night was any indicator, oh boy, I think we've got something here in Jonathan Kuminga. Here's what he did last night against the Lakers. 17.7 rebounds, 9 assists for Jonathan Kuminga. 6 for 11 for the field, 4 for 6 from three-point range, 1 for 2 to the line. So wait a second. Jonathan Kuminga is passing the ball better, so he's more comfortable in the system. And he's got a three-point shot now. Jonathan Kuminga was always able to hit the occasional three. Is this going to be something he's able to do on a consistent basis? Is this going to be a situation where the Warriors, anytime they go into a game, because Steve Kerr started Kuminga last night. He started Draymond at the 5 and, Kuminga at the 4 with Steph, Pajemski, Butler, as the 1, 2, and 3. You mean to tell me that when teams game plan against the Warriors, they got to worry about that guy shooting threes now? So obviously all the attention is going to go to Steph. There was one play where it was Luka, and I forget who the other Laker was. It was a screen and roll, or a pick, weak side pick with Steph Curry, Jimmy Butler. 2 guys go to Steph because of the gravity he brings. Jimmy Butler gets a free roll to the basket, and that's going to happen. It's happened throughout all of Steph's prime. But now you can trust that guy to hit a corner three, to hit a big-time three on the wing, oh boy, that adds a whole new dynamic to this Warriors team. And given what he gave you on the defensive end, with his athleticism, that's scary. But in a bigger sense, in a larger sense, I'm shocked at the number of people this morning on television, radio, podcasts, the true basketball heads, they're not surprised by this. I'm shocked at the people who were not shocked by last night's opening night, but were a little like, oh, wow, this team is good. Did you watch the second half of last season? Because if I remember correctly, we could show the numbers what the Golden State Warriors were. After acquiring Jimmy Butler, they were one of the 5 best teams in basketball. We can show you the numbers. Okay, say that the third best record, and by the way, this is since they acquired Jimmy, so last night is included in this. 24-8 since acquiring Jimmy. That's the third best record in the NBA in that span. 8th best offensive rating. And I said this last night on the show. Number 1 are the Golden State Warriors in defensive rating. I keep hearing about the size issues, which I think that's overblown. A, Draymond plays bigger than he is. B, added Al Horford. C, Jonathan Kuminga can play big, and we know, obviously, Quentin Post as well. So the Warriors have size. That's not the issue that folks like to make it out to be. Are they as big as Houston? No, no one's as big as Houston. But the Warriors are fine in that regard. They can lock you out in the defensive end. They've got outstanding perimeter defenders everywhere. Jimmy Butler, Draymond Green, Jonathan Kuminga now appears to be more locked in the defensive end. Once Anthony Melton comes back, he's a good defender. Even Steph, who's never been accused of being a great defender, plays his butt off on that end of the floor. And you got shooters everywhere. Steph Curry, Brendan Pajemski, Al Horford, Buddy Hield. Jimmy can hit the occasional three. Maybe Jonathan Kuminga can hit the three-point shot. 4 for 6 last night. That's a pretty good sign, right? DeAnthony Melton can hit the three. Seth Curry, when he joins the team next month, he's able to hit the three. Moses Moody can hit the three. This team, set it before the season, we're seeing it right now in real time, is absolutely, positively terrifying in the Western Conference. And listen, the West is 10 times better than the East. The Knicks should have a free roll to the finals unless someone else gets Giannis. You got Houston, OKC, who we'll talk about in a second, but you got Houston, Oklahoma City. You got the Denver Nuggets, who are the team I fear the most in the West. You've got teams like Minnesota, who's made back-to-back Western Conference Finals. West is loaded. But the one thing is, many great players in the West. Jokic is the best player in the world. Luka might be trying to stake his claim for that. I'll talk about Luka and the Lakers in a second. Loved what I saw from him. Plenty of great players in the Western Conference. What they don't have, great as they are, A, the depth the Warriors have, B, the shooting the Warriors have, C, the defense the Warriors have, and D, the greatest shooter ever, who happens to be the baddest man in the history of basketball, who happens to be as well, last season, age 37 years old, by the way, when he was averaging 22, 23 a game, not a great efficiency, because I don't know, he was a 37-year-old without a second co-star. Well, when they added that second co-star, Jimmy Butler, this is what Steph Curry was in the last portion of the regular season, from February 8th on to the rest of the regular season. 27 a game, 5 rebounds, 4 assists, 45 from the field, 39 from 3 on high volume, by the way, 93% from the line. So classic old school Steph Curry, giving you a 25 to 27, great efficiency. Any given night, like a game I attended against the Orlando Magic, where he's bombing threes from half court, off the dribble, behind the back threes, catch and shoot. We know that all the tricks that Steph Curry has in the bag, or the 50 burger he had against Memphis, where he hit, I think, 12 threes in that game. This is a scary, scary team in the West. And I'm excited for tomorrow night. Tomorrow night is going to be like let's see where both of these teams are, because Golden State plays Denver, and I said it last night in the show, I think that's going to be your Western Conference Finals. Denver is the best player in the world, champions from 2023. They brought back Bruce Brown. They're crazy deep, but that team is as a Warriors fan, they make me nervous. OKC does to a degree, but the Warriors took 2 of 3 off the Thunder last year. The Thunder faced 2 Game 7s. It's not to take anything away from OKC, but they're not this unbeatable juggernaut that folks have tried to make them out to be. Great team, amazing defensively. The Warriors can be able to combat that with what they bring to the table on both ends of the floor. Shifting now to the Lakers. So this is kind of a segue, because JJ Redick was talking after the game. JJ Redick, second-year head coach of the Los Angeles Lakers, was talking about some of the issues that has plagued this team as of late. Take a listen.
The trend I see is that we continue to be a terrible third-quarter team to start. That was last year. That was the preseason. Got to rethink some things, and it's a two-way thing with the guys. What do they need at halftime to make sure they're ready to play? They're not ready to play to start the third quarter.
So that is true. I will say in his defense, he is facing the Golden State Warriors. His Lakers are facing the Golden State Warriors, who aren't they kind of known for their big third quarter runs because Steve Kerr is. I will give Eric Spoelstra the respect based on what he's worked with in Miami as the best coach in basketball. I think Steve Kerr, with respect to Ty Lue, Steve Kerr's number 2. Steve Kerr's proven just halftime adjustments on the fly. He made one of the greatest lineup changes in the history of the finals back in 2015 when he inserted Iguodala, as you see Iguodala's book back there, into the starting lineup off the bench. Like, Kerr's an all-time great coach. All-time great coach. So I wouldn't be too concerned about that if you're a Lakers fan. I think JJ Redick's smart. I think he's going to get it right. Here's the positive and the negative. Let's start with the positive. Luka looked unbelievable. Let's show you what Luka did last night against the Lakers. He cooked us in every way, shape, and form. A near 40-point triple-double. 43 points, 12 rebounds, 9 assists. By the way, 2 steals and a block. Hasn't that always been the knock on Luka? Not that he's a bad defender, but it's like he doesn't even try on the defensive end. Well, he did last night. He put the effort in. 2 steals, a block, 17 and 27 for the field, 2 for 10 from 3, which obviously isn't good, but that tells you, and it showed it just by my eye test last night, every time he drove in the paint, we couldn't stop him. Luka's always a great finisher down low. He's very, very strong. And as we saw all offseason, as we saw when he was on the cover of Men's Health magazine, he's in phenomenal shape. He looks great. And so you look at this guy, you look at the step back 3 ability, you look at the some of the touch and the tough finishes that he has inside the paint. This is a guy who is on a mission. This is why I predicted yesterday on the show that he would be league MVP. Because there's the motivation and the storyline. This is kind of the second reason, but the motivation / storyline kind of intermingling here, where Dallas, a team that he'd taken to 2 Western Conference Finals and a Finals, he was Dallas's son. He's from Slovenia, but he was Dallas's adopted son to a certain degree. And they shipped him out because he's fat, he drinks too much, he doesn't care about. And that crushed Luka. You saw it in his reaction to the tribute video back in April when he returned to Dallas. It crushed him. Shocked the rest of us, obviously. It crushed the city of Dallas. So there's okay, I'm out of shape. Okay, let me get in. You look what I did to you when I was out of shape. Wait till I get in shape, what I'm going to do to y'all. And I think I'm not saying he's going to average 43 a game. That's a bit much. That's not going to happen. But 33, 34 a game on good efficiency. Giving about 8 rebounds, 8 assists, somewhere in that ballpark a game. Luka's going to be the MVP this year. And partly, and this is kind of the bad news for the Lakers, because he's going to have to carry a bigger load. When you watch last night, obviously you're thinking, God, if LeBron was out there, this would change everything for the Lakers. And that's true. But I watched last night, and I'm thinking, because LeBron and Luka... LeBron's a more athletic Luka Doncic, to say the very least. Even to this day, he's more athletic than Luka. But they do have very similar playing styles in the sense that they are ball dominant, but they do love to dish the rock if they draw a double team. Great passers. LeBron's one of the greatest passers ever, but Luka's an excellent passer in his own right. That's why his assist numbers are so high. Where are the shooters on the Lakers? I mean, you're going to rely on Marcus Smart to hit a big wing 3 in a playoff game or in a big game against, Denver or Golden State or the Timberwolves or the Thunder or Rockets. You're going to trust that guy? Marcus Smart, classic Marcus Smart. He's flopping all over the place. It's, again, classic Marcus Smart. You trust some of these guys to hit big corner threes in big spots. Rui Hachimura can hit the 3. Austin Reeves is a good 3-point shooter and a good number 3 option on that basketball team. But beyond that, who do you got? Also bad news, and I'm going to call this right now. October 22nd, 2025. I'm calling it right now. Be it Lakers fans / LeBron fans, there's always a scapegoat. And the scapegoat tends to be that number 3 guy. And people like say, well, is it Austin Reeves? Austin Reeves is the 3rd best player in the Lakers. He's not the 3rd most important player to the Lakers. If this team wants to go anywhere and have any type of success, they got to get some play from their center. Obviously, LeBron's not taking the blame. Or not taking the blame. LeBron's not taking the fans' criticism. Luka's not taking the fans' criticism. Austin Reeves probably won't. So who does that leave? DeAndre Ayton. who last night, the 4 turnovers, he's fumbling the basketball in the paint, at times look like he's struggling to get a shot up against what I hear is the smaller Warriors. I'm telling you, this is a guy who energy isn't always the best. This is why him and Monty Williams clashed in Phoenix. This is why when you are a 16 and 10 guy, just an automatic double-double a night. Trailblazers got all this young talent they're building and they got some nice pieces, and they could not wait to ship your butt out of town. Not the greatest look in the world. Effort's always been a concern with DeAndre Ayton. His ability to play big. What do you have? Only 6 rebounds last night? Luka out-rebounded him. And Luka's rebounds has always been higher than most guards, but still, come on. So that's a big issue for this Los Angeles Lakers team. This guy, I'm telling you, Lakers needed size and they got it. Having DeAndre Ayton's much better than having Jackson Hayes as your starting 5, okay? He's going to be the scapegoat. Fumbles the basketball in the paint, struggles to hold on to it at times. This is going to be an issue for this Los Angeles Lakers basketball team. There's no question about it. But honestly, I look at this team, barring some sort of gigantic trade, which that's code for if they get Giannis, which they're obviously not. They don't have the assets to do it. This feels like they could probably win a playoff series. Just on the back of Luka's greatness and LeBron being big in key spots, they could win a playoff series. Beyond that, they can't compete with the size and athleticism of Houston or of Oklahoma City, or they certainly can't deal with the shooting and the defense of Golden State and Minnesota. Did we not just see what happened in the playoffs with the Timberwolves last year? So, and that series was closer than the gentleman's sweep would tell you. Still, LeBron's now a year older. Anthony Edwards is a year older, which those obviously work in reverse ways. But excuse me, I wasn't terribly shocked. Obviously, would have looked better if LeBron was out there. Not sure the outcome would have been different. And B, even when LeBron does come back in about a month, they're a good team. They're absolutely a playoff team. No question about it. I don't think they'll have to participate in the play-in tournament, which has got to become a staple for the Lakers since the play-in tournament was instituted back in 2021. I don't see anything special about this team. I see a special player in Luka. I see a player in LeBron James who's still easily top 15 in the NBA. Beyond that, Jared Vanderbilt can defend, is a net negative on the offensive end. Austin Reeves, decent on the defensive end, can get his own shot, but we saw what he did in the playoffs last year against Minnesota. Really, really struggled. I mean, Marcus Smart, DeAndre Ayton fumbles the basketball in the paint. JJ Redick, inexperienced coach, going against the likes of, in the postseason, a Steve Kerr, a Chris Finch, a Mark Dagnall, Ime Udoka. That's not something that you necessarily want to see if you're a Los Angeles Lakers fan. Josh Tariff joining us in about 7 to 10 minutes. I did want to see this, or to talk about this. So the first game, I ended up switching over to Peacock to watch Warriors-Lakers, and I had the first game that aired on my phone, Rockets and Oklahoma City Thunder, which was a barn burner, double overtime, first game for the NBA and NBC, and it was, I'll say this quickly, then we'll talk about the game. I know some of the old timers talk about, man, it was so great to hear the NBA and NBC theme song. Da 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 da. I wasn't around for that time, so it doesn't hit me the same way it does other people. For me personally, as a lifelong fan, hearing Mike Tirico call a basketball game, and we know Tirico does an awesome job on Sunday Night Football on NBC with Collinsworth, but hearing Tirico call a basketball game for the first time in almost a decade, takes me back to my childhood. You remember some of those Warriors games when Steph and the Warriors were coming up, and obviously he called the late, great Kobe Bryant's final game. It was awesome on the call with Hubie Brown, who's also a legend in his own right. So it's great to hear Tirico call the game. Jamal Crawford and Reggie were solid as well. As for the game itself last night, I couldn't help but think when watching it, this is the difference between a very good playoff team that could get to the Western Conference Finals potentially in Houston, and okay, that's you see the championship medal and pedigree there. In here now, that's not to say that's how it's always going to stay. Obviously, the Thunder are always going to be champions. They'll always have that championship pedigree if they have their core. But Houston can get better. But in here now, I watch and you're like, boy, they miss Fred VanVleet. They miss that guy. I mean, just someone who can distribute, control the pace. Obviously, VanVleet can get his own shot. Excellent three-point shooter. The fact, and this is why I said yesterday, I took the Rockets out of championship contention, because if they don't have a point guard to distribute these shots to Kevin Durant, to Alperen Şengün. And by the way, Alperen Şengün, show his numbers. He was awesome last night. 39 points, 11 rebounds, 7 assists, 12 for 24 from the field, 5 for 8 from three-point range. Again, I said it was a shock seeing Jonathan Kuminga go 4 for 6. It was a shock to see Şengün go 5 for 8. By the way, 5 threes is a career high for him, and he goes 10 of 11 from the free throw line. And in every big spot down the stretch for Houston, they went to Kevin Durant, as you should. But then in big spots, they're like, hey, big fella, you get us an open look here. You get us the best shot that you can possibly get us. So that's a great sign for Houston. Like, this guy is elevating into being one of the better players in the NBA in terms of that, like, top 15-ish. Maybe he might be pushing top 10 if he continues to play at this high of a level. But you watch Oklahoma City, and it's been there, done that. Even for a young team, still been there, done that. Shea, I think it's a little gimmicky. He draws a foul to get the free throws, but whatever. Shea can get whatever he wants in the mid-range. He had the big shot, obviously, at the end of the fourth to tie the game. Chet Holmgren was excellent early on, was 7 for 7 from the field to start. Like, the depth of Oklahoma City, Hartenstein eventually kind of settled in. Casey Wallace hit some huge three-point shots down the stretch of that game. Lou Dort is just a bulldog of a defender. We know Oklahoma City's a contender. There's a reason they won 68 games last year, won the NBA title. And for Houston, they're constructed very similarly. They're big. They've got big guys that can shoot in the case of like Jabari Smith. And then for Oklahoma City, they've got, what's my man's name? Chet Holmgren, Steven Adams, and Hartenstein. Like, there's similarities there. But who's got the basketball in their hands down the stretch? You don't know. You would have known if Van Vliet hadn't gone down. Unfortunately, knock on wood for a quick recovery for him. He's gone for the year. The last thing I wanted to say about this game, though, and I hated this. I hated it. So NBC, and again, this is another aspect, NBC crushed it last night with their basketball coverage. It was so great to see, that network back covering this beautiful game. They show one of the things that made NBC so great for so long is them showing the starting lineups, right? Like them showing the visitor starting lineups and the boo fans booing the other team and the starting, and now for the Chicago Bulls, doing that with the Thunder. The Thunder are the defending champions. Fans got their title 4 months ago. Personally, I thought it was kind of crappy how they received Kevin Durant. Especially when you consider another former member of the Thunder, Steven Adams, who's obviously with the Rockets and has been very important to them. Steven Adams, they come, starting at the center for the Rockets. Steven Adams, they cheer for him. Kevin Durant comes out and they boo him. And KD, to his credit, and we'll play the bite, KD was really, really, really classy about it after the game. Really classy. But it's like, you got your title. Like, KD left, you got the 2 titles in Golden State, but then eventually you did get your title, and you might get more with the core that you have. Let it go. You're still booing this guy. I mean, I saw videos of Kevin Durant literally holding babies after he's doing pregame warm-ups. Literally, a Thunder fan gave KD a baby who was wearing a 35 Thunder jersey, and he was holding it, and it was a really cool moment. And KD seemed to have good interactions with some of the fans, and then they turn around and boo him. I thought that was kind of low. I didn't love that. I get why they did it initially. Heck, even if the Thunder had still won a championship, I still kind of get it. Yeah, he spurned them. Forget as a Warriors fan, I defend him leaving in the first place because he was leaving Westbrook and he was leaving a situation where he wasn't prioritized as the number one option the way he should have been to go get a championship, to chase what people had said he needed to get all of that. So I get initially why they booed him first few years when he was in Golden State. Now, come on. Really? And Kevin Durant, again, to his credit, was classy about it after the game.
I mean, it's not real. I mean, I get so much love when I come in here from all the fans. Walking onto the court, at the hotel, walking around town. Every time I come here, it's just so much love and respect. And people always tell me I appreciate my time here, and there's always vice versa. I feel the same way. So, but that's part of the brand of OKC is to boo me when my name get introduced. But I think it's all love after that.
Again, kudos to him for being classy about it. I didn't love the OKC Thunder fans' reception to Kevin. We're going to take a 1-minute break, but when we come back, Josh Tariff, Gryd Network contributor, will join the show to talk a little bit about opening night in the NBA, as well as some big NFL storylines with the Lions, Colts, who his MVP favorite is right now. Talk about that in just 1 minute after the break. Welcome back to Carving Up Live. Appreciate everybody stopping by on this Wednesday. 3 straight shows for Carving Up, so very excited to be back once again. Joining us now once again for the 3rd time in the last, 5 weeks or so. Love having him on, the newest addition to the Gryd Network. Would you please give a warm welcome once again to Josh Tariff, who is joining Carving Up Live right now. Josh, how are you doing, my man?
I'm doing all right. I literally am, I know I was telling you off air, I'm just checking into Vegas. I literally got into my hotel room about 15 minutes ago, got the computer up, ready to roll, because I know we got a lot to talk about.
100%, and I can't wait to get your takes on some of the things, especially in the NBA last night. So we get 2 great games, the barn burner, 2 overtime, Oklahoma City, and beating the Houston Rockets, and then my Warriors knocking off the Lakers. What was kind of your do you have one big takeaway or multiple big takeaways from either game, both games? What was kind of what you thought about last night's NBA action?
A couple quick takeaways. For one, man, does it feel different and nostalgic having the NBA back on NBC. As much as I love TNT, and I still will, and it's always going to have a special place in my heart, there was something different about the vibe with it. Between the whole setup, of course, the classic round ball rock, say that 5 times fast. It's definitely a great feeling. Now on to the games themselves. As far as the first game with Houston and the Thunder, I'm really glad Sengun got some national TV love, because this dude is showing more and more that he is one of the best big men in the league today. And you show up against the defending champs. I understand the Rockets lost in double overtime, but you still put on 39, 11, and 7, 10 of 11 from the line, which we know for a big man that's unheard of, and playing 49 minutes in the opening night. Yep. That says something even in defeat. And then, if we're switching gears with your Warriors, and I know you got a nice, grin on your face about the Warriors having a nice opening win. Let me ask you, because I was a little surprised on them starting Kuminga, because I know there's been constant back and forth regarding Kuminga naturally, and is he even going to be there or not? I kind of envision him as being a legit contender for 6th man of the year, depending on how they wanted to use him. But being that they threw him in the starting lineup over both Al Horford or Buddy Hield, depending on what type of lineup that they want to go, I thought it was a unique setup. In this case, it certainly worked against the Lakers, because who did they got taking rebounds? That was their whole issue last year. Oh, we fixed it. We got DeAndre Ayton. No, that's not. He was waived for a reason. You got him for nothing for a reason. He is not going to be your savior down low. And LeBron's only going to be able to give you so much when he comes back. And we know Luka's going to be a beast, but the Lakers are still not in a position to get deep into the playoffs. I still think they're going to be in the playoffs, but I don't think they're going to be a deep playoff team without getting a legitimate rim protector. And the other key takeaway with all this is it's the first day of the season.
That's fair.
Everyone's going to overreact. We're already talking. I literally just said Lakers playoffs with this first sentence, which is just a nature of the beast. Things are going to get adjusted for everybody. Lakers will adjust something, but we knew going in, okay, how's our rim protection going to be? Nothing looks like it was solved in that.
No, it wasn't. And that's never been DeAndre Ayton's, one of his core strengths. And even last night, the 4 turnovers, fumbling the basketball in the paint, you kind of hit it on a point that I brought up earlier in the show, that, it's for a team like the Portland Trailblazers, who's got all this young talent, they're building and growing, and you think they would kind of have one that want to have their set big man who's an automatic double-double a night. The fact that they couldn't get him out of there fast enough after Phoenix had similar issues is a bit of a red flag. And the fact that his market was as dry as it was, and the Lakers, out of pure necessity, nabbed him when they did. And I think, to your point about Kuminga, listen, I was surprised too. When I got the notification on my phone when I was live on the air last night, I'm like, that's an interesting move, given the stalemate, given, some of the fit questions we have. And again, put up the graphic again. He was sensational last night. Forget the 17 and 7. The 9 assists was shocking to me, Josh. The 4 for 6 from 3. Like, does this kid now have a jump shot? Like, is he fitting more into Steve Kerr's system? That made me very excited as a Warriors fan for things to come.
I thought way back when on draft day, because I'm an Orlando Magic fan.
Yes.
And I was hoping that Kuminga fell to us in the draft. And then you drafted him right before us. So we ended up with a guy named Franz Wagner. Okay.
Decent move. Yeah. Decent pick.
Time at the draft, I was just like, oh no, Kuminga, I think is the guy. Like, I think he could be a good fit. Obviously worked out well for Orlando. And I think given the chance, if he actually gets the chance in Golden State, he will work out. We saw glimpses of it, in parts of the playoffs and late in the season last year. And then he was benched magically and we didn't know why. And then obviously the contract stalemate that happened here. But Kuminga is continuing to develop more and more. That's why I was thinking this could be a 6 man of the year type guy. He is an absolute threat. He, to me, is no question the number 3 option for the Warriors. And to me, with his trajectory, could very well turn into a number 2 option somewhere else.
Oh, for sure. There's certain organizations to be a number 1 option. And by the way, before we shift to before we shift to the Detroit Lions, I just want to tell you that last night when I made my NBA predictions, I did have your Orlando Magic in the Eastern Conference Finals. I think y'all are going to have that type of caliber season. I love Paolo Banchero, the addition of Desmond Bane. Any sort of quick takes on that?
Well, I don't know why you left it at Eastern Conference Finals.
Oh,
you should have went a little further. But
over the Knicks.
I really feel it's going to be a battle between the Magic and Knicks. I do feel something is going to happen with Cleveland for whatever. As much talent as they have there, I feel something is going to drop off a little bit, and it will come down to the Magic and Knicks in the Eastern Conference Finals. Of course, I'm going to naturally feel a little biased and feel the Magic could sneak over. That said, Knicks and Cavs are built to win right now. Magic are built to win this decade.
Okay.
So because of the way their contracts are set and things like that. So even if it's not this year, if we get to the Eastern Conference Finals and fall short there, not going to be disappointed. Obviously, that's a tremendous improvement on the season.
Absolutely.
But we're continuing to build because everyone is locked in. Paolo's continuing to grow. Franz continuing to grow. The one missing piece that we had was the three-point shooting. We got one of the 5 best three-point shooters in the league now. And to throw in the fact that what was not talked about was Orlando was middle of the pack last season in free throw shooting. And Desmond Bane is a career 88, 89% free throw shooter. So he's also going to be a tremendous asset to us in that area. Orlando is a team to reckon with in the East. And yeah, I definitely feel a Magic Knicks Eastern Conference Finals is likely. I just might be a little more biased on the outcome than you.
I mean, I would love to see it for your sake. I'd love to see Orlando get back to the finals. They've done it more recently than the Knicks.
I'm not opposed to a Magic Warriors NBA Finals. I think we could be okay with this.
We'd have to probably suspend our relationship for that 10-day, 2-week stretch. It would be tough here at the Gryd Network, but I think we can be able to get along through. I think it should be able to work.
We can handle it for the regular season.
We can handle it for the regular season, no question. Let's shift to some football. Detroit is playing excellent. They beat Tampa Bay 24-9. I said on yesterday's show, I think Dan Campbell weirdly has become the most underrated coach in football because the consistency of Detroit in the offseason, the 2 coordinator losses, some of the losses in the offensive line, and it doesn't look like there's any drop-off whatsoever. I mean, with the defensive starters they lost, and then Brian Branch out with the suspension, they hold a Tampa Bay offense that was 5-1, that got Mike Evans back briefly, and Emeka Egbuka to under double digits. Thoughts on Detroit and thoughts on Dan Campbell? Is he the best culture builder that we have in the NFL today?
I mean, he's certainly up there with the culture builders. You can absolutely make the argument that he has that because, from day one when he came in, he was open and honest and emotional and like, hey, I know right now we are not going to be good, but we're going to build something here and we're going to build a culture and a family and a personality. And over the years, they did that. The big question coming into this year that you touched on, coordinators are gone. What's going to happen now? How is Dan Campbell going to be? Was he just behind these brilliant coordinators, or was he really the mastermind of putting everything together? Turns out he is the mastermind because Detroit is still running on all cylinders, still one of the top offenses in the league, still one of the top defenses in the league, and they have the culture there. I feel there are two other coaches that you can put in the argument with him as far as with like the best culture and what they're doing with their franchises. And those two guys would be Mike Vrabel and Kyle Shanahan. Because when you look at him, Mike Vrabel, first off, he took a Patriots team that was a bottom 5 team last year. And, you're trying to develop a quarterback. You bring in all sorts of new players on defense. You still don't have a legitimate running back. You had Stephon Diggs with off-the-field issues in the offseason and coming off an ACL injury. And now all of a sudden the Patriots have rebuilt the culture. They had the Belichick culture, but now a new culture has come around and they are playing hard-nosed, tight, good, effective football. And then you got Kyle Shanahan on the West Coast with the 49ers. You can get plugged into the lineup and you're somehow going to have 80 yards and a touchdown because he finds a way to develop, no matter how many injuries he has given that team next man up mentality to the fullest extent that we have seen in a very long time. So it's so important for these teams to have a culture that a coach leads, like Detroit, like a San Francisco, like a New England, because then you're seeing the growth, you're seeing the potential, and you're seeing the self-confidence that is exuded into players. Then when you look at teams like your Dolphins, your Jets, the teams, they're at the bottom for a reason, not just because of their players, because they don't have a culture or that culture is toxic. And that leads to self-doubt, players-only meetings, dissension amongst teammates, which then does not lead to wins. So Campbell is definitely a guy, and we've talked about it. I brought it up on your show before. I will run through a wall after hearing like a Dan Campbell speech. And the same, I think, really can go with Vrabel and the mindset that Shanahan puts in a roster.
I would almost include McVay in that conversation as well. I think
sure, McVay will also be in it.
McVay's almost, I've said McVay is like a great marriage between a Kyle Shanahan and between like a Mike Vrabel type where it's, where it's a guy who is really intense, but also really kind of intellectual, really cerebral. So yeah, I agree. I think Kyle Shanahan's coach of the year thus far based on what he's done. 5-2, leading the division with the injuries they've had. He's been unbelievable this season.
I mean, it's a toss-up really between him and Vrabel right now.
It really is. Yeah. No, they've both been outstanding. I want to talk about the Colts. Speaking of teams that have been outstanding, have shocked everybody. 6-1 best record in football. As I'm sure you and I both predict in the regular season. 6-1. You got not one, but easily 2 MVP candidates and your quarterback and your running back. And this is a stat I brought up on Monday that is hard to, let me take this banner down. It's kind of hard to believe about the Indianapolis Colts. Most points per drive in the 21st century. The Colts are ahead of the 2007 Patriots and the 2018 Chiefs. Make sense of that, Josh. And do you think maybe that's not sustainable per se, but as many contenders as there are in the AFC, is it fair to say the Colts are one of them? Could they win the Super Bowl?
It's really tough when you're 6-1 to say no, you're not. So, I mean, you got to think that they are in there. Now, you got to also take it with a sample size because, correct me if I'm wrong, was it last year or maybe 2 years ago where the Vikings had a record of, they were like maybe 10-1 or something along those lines. Like they had an incredible record and then just fell apart towards the end of the season and stumbled into the playoffs. So it is still possible that the Colts could have a decline like that. However, when you are leading the league in points per game and fourth in offensive yards per game, top 5 in passing yards per game with Daniel Jones, along with that being 3rd in the league in interceptions, again, a 6-1 record, and you're in a division that we know is certainly not the strongest in the league by any means. The Jaguars are hit or miss depending on how they feel this week. They have a great win a couple weeks ago against Buffalo and then fall flat on their face following that. And then Houston, who knows, and Titans are the Titans. So, they're going to get good wins with those. Looking at their schedule coming up, it's going to be a little tricky. They got the Chiefs on this schedule. They got Seattle. They got San Francisco. So definitely some tough matchups. But the way they're rolling right now, the defense working on all cylinders, like you said, essentially 2 MVP candidates on your team and 2 guys. Jonathan Taylor, we didn't know if he was still had enough in him because it kind of was off and on, a little injuries the last couple of years. And Daniel Jones, we know the history with him, but both of them working with that team, I mean, how can they not be considered, at least considered, a favorite to be in the AFC title game?
I say if they can get the number 1 seed, get a favorable matchup in the divisional round, like I think we would be staring that possibility right in the face. They've been playing excellent football. Last question I'll ask you is, I did a segment yesterday on my show, MVP ladder. I can go and put up the graphic. I believe this is it. This is what my top 10 look like for MVP. For those that are listening, from 1 to 10, Mahomes, Dak, Baker, McCaffrey, Daniel Jones, Jonathan Taylor, talking about the Colts, Stafford, Drake May, Jalen Hurts, Bijan Robinson. If you had to have an MVP favorite, and fortunately, we're not even halfway through the season yet, so we got a long way to go. Who would be your favorite for MVP today in the NFL? And are there any other contenders or maybe some dark horses that you'd like to bring up? Who is your favorite right now?
Well, the one thing that we have to realize, and it's a shame that we have to realize this, but that's just how the NFL works. You're not going to have a quarterback win, or you're not going to have a non-quarterback win MVP. As much as
unless they have like a historic season or something, yeah.
If Jonathan Taylor breaks the rushing touchdown record, has 2,000 plus yards, all right, maybe we'll consider it. But I mean, Saquon with the season he had last year did not win it. So really, Jonathan Taylor, or like a Puka Nacua or Smith and Jigba, as incredible seasons as those 3 guys are having, you have to get even better than what Saquon did last year to even be considered for it. It really falls on the quarterback with not just their stats, but then how that team does and where they rank. So Mahomes, based with how the Chiefs have been, especially starting the season, but then he's taking them on their back and getting them back on track, he's obviously in the consideration for it. Daniel Jones, as crazy as it sounds, is certainly in consideration for it. If the Patriots win the division, Drake May is your MVP.
Okay.
I don't expect the Patriots to overtake Buffalo to win the division, but they're ahead right now. So it's not impossible to see that. So that's the type of story where all of a sudden, when you have a quarterback like Drake May, who will have, top numbers, but also make your team exceed expectations beyond what people were thinking. It also helps when you're on a team of a market that gets more eyes on it. In that case, because say the Colts have, end first in their division, say the Patriots end first in their division, say both Daniel Jones and Drake May have similar numbers, the voters are going to look at Drake May more because of the history of that franchise. And that stinks for Daniel Jones, who I think is safe to say he's already locked up comeback player of the year. So
yes, no question.
But that's the type of thing where, hey, you're going to have your Mahomes, you're going to have your Josh Allens, you're going to have your usual suspects in there. But then you're having these other quarterbacks that have come out of absolute nowhere. Your Drake May, your Daniel Jones. If Trevor Lawrence can turn it around, and and all of a sudden, I know that's a wild take, but if he could suddenly turn it around to have the Jags get elevated more so they go on a big win streak, then you could throw him in there. I'm not expecting him, but they have these opportunities. Justin Herbert, if he can turn the Chargers around with running backs hurt and his entire offensive line, on the bench, but leads them to win that division. All right, well, maybe you could consider, Herbert as a possibility. So still plenty of season to go with it to figure it out. I'm liking the dark horse Drake May aspect for if the Patriots were to win the division, you have to maybe consider him.
Well, listen, Drake May's got 6 straight games, the passer rating over 100. And again, what he did against the Titans, not even the the greatest who ever did it, Tom Brady ever did, where it's 20 or more passes and a completion percentage over 90%. That's sensational. Accuracy is off the charts. He moves really well. He's never gotten enough credit for his athleticism. And I mean, again, we give obviously Vrabel a ton of credit, but none of us were expecting the Patriots to be anything more than they might be a fringe playoff team leading the division in late October. Nobody saw that coming. So if this is sustainable,
I was at best thinking they
right.
were a 500 team at best this year. But like fighting, it's like, all right, we're seeing improvement.
Yes.
We're seeing where they can go. But all of a sudden it's like, oh no, they might be the 1 seed in the AFC.
It's wild. This is why you play the games. This is why you don't judge it based off Madden ratings or depth charts or power rankings or anything of that sort. So Josh Tariff, great stuff as always. Thanks for coming on the show, and hope we can have you on again, my man.
Thanks for having me. Always glad to be here.
Yes, sir. Josh Tariff, great stuff as always. Listen, I would not mind to see a Golden State Warriors and Orlando Magic finals. That would be fun for this network. I must admit, there was a moment last year in which I thought we were potentially going to get a Warriors Celtics finals with myself and my buddy Tim Barner. That would have been an absolute blast for this network. But listen, I do think Orlando has the pieces. Certainly as weak as the East is today, with Halliburton out for Indiana and Giannis is in Milwaukee. And I mean, who is their big addition? Miles Turner. I mean, again, Miles Turner is a good shot blocker, can stretch the floor. That's not going to work. And so, it's not going to work. It's just not going to make them a championship contender. Giannis may not even be a buck by season's end. And so Boston, if they get Tatum back, they'll be a player in the East, but they still do not have the depth that you would want to have to be a contender. And they obviously moved on from Holiday and Porzingis. Not only Porzingis was available to begin with, but so we'll see how it plays itself out. I guess I could take off the headphones after the interview. So again, appreciate Josh for stopping by. Always love having him on the show. So I'm not gonna lie. When I saw this story yesterday, when I got, it was too late for me to add it to yesterday's show. Yesterday's show was packed to begin with, so I'm like, I'll talk about it tomorrow. But when I saw it on my phone as I got out of my last class of the day, I'm like, oh, this is like AI. This is totally fake. This is an NFL meme. This is somebody made something up, and then you look and it's like, oh crap, this is real. What I'm referring to is. So let's start from the beginning, and the first part isn't that shocking. The second part is really shocking. So, of course, the Denver Broncos pulled off an insane comeback, scored 33 in the fourth quarter, which is the second most in NFL history for points in the fourth quarter, down 19-0 in the third, down 26-8 with 6 minutes to go in the game, come back and beat the New York Giants. Well, as we know, Sean Payton, head coach of the Broncos, very brash, tells you what's on his mind. Quarterback for Bo Nix, Russell Wilson, is the backup for the Giants behind Jackson Dart. And of course, after week 3, he was benched for Jackson Dart. Well, this is what Sean Payton had to say recently when discussing the Broncos' comeback and the New York Giants' future, and see if you detect a pretty blatant shot in here.
I have a ton of respect for that organization. I spent 4 of my early years there coordinating Super Bowl, first game in this stadium before 9/11, close with the Mayor Tisch family. And, they found a little spark with that quarterback. I was talking to John Mayer not too long ago, and I said we were hoping that change would have happened long after our game. But anyway.
Okay. So anyway, as he just threw a blatant shot at his former quarterback, Russell Wilson, who, this is the part I could not believe until I actually went on Twitter, X, whatever it's called, and saw that, oh, this is a real tweet. This isn't AI nonsense. Russell Wilson on Twitter yesterday responding to Sean Payton. Russell Wilson, quote, classless, but not surprised. Didn't realize you're still bounty hunting 15 plus years later through the media. Laughing emoji, hashtag let's ride. Wow. that is for 90% of professional athletes. This is not a story. This is, oh, Sean Payton took a shot at insert quarterback's name. Oh, that was kind of messed up. All right, move on. Took a shot at Russell Wilson. We know he and Russ did not have the best relationship in Denver. Sean Payton often made it a point to chastise Russ either to the media or on the sideline. And there was obviously the ugly situation I remember talking about on the show when he benched Russell Wilson so the Broncos could save some money when they moved on from Russell Wilson. It was a disaster. They did not get along from the job. I remember Sean Payton took the job and he's like, we're getting rid of Russell Wilson's office. It was a whole thing. So Russ, who has the moniker, the reputation of, nice guy. And by the way, I want to say this on the front end. when I'm going to say some of the negative things about Russ, and or it may come off as negative, I'm going to say, I think Russell's a really good, and I mean this, June, I think Russell's a really good human being. The part of the ironic part about him sending this tweet is that yesterday, Tuesday, he did what he has done on Tuesdays, on off days, his whole career, and that's visit sick kids in a children's hospital, whatever the closest children's hospital is to wherever he's playing. Seahawks for a long time, then Broncos, Steelers, and Giants. So Russell's he's man of the year winner. I think he's an exceptional human being. The knock on Russell has always been, feels a bit inauthentic. Forget the let's ride and all that. People say, oh, that's corny. Whatever. We've had corny athletes. But there's an element of, there would be games a couple of years ago or a few years ago when it might have been after the Broncos gave up 70 and lost to the Dolphins. Remember that game? Boy, that feels like an eternity ago for Miami. And Russell goes to the podium, and as soon as he used to end every press conference in Seattle, go Hawks, win or lose, go Hawks. And after, let's ride became, of course, we all remember the meme and all that became his new thing in Denver. And after a press conference, all right, thank you guys, let's ride. He said that all the time. And even after the Miami game, all right, thank you guys, Broncos country, let's ride. Like, it just man, they're like, dude, why are you throwing out catchphrases after 50-point losses? No, but like, what are you doing? There's the high knees on the plane and all this. It's like, oh God, like, doesn't feel that legit, doesn't feel that authentic. There was one moment a few years ago when he was in Denver where a defensive tackle, I forget who it was he was dog cussing Russ face to face, and Russell's expression didn't change. It's like, if a man's out here berating, you gotta respond. Otherwise, it completely strips you of any credibility from a leadership perspective. So for that guy to go, can we put up that tweet again? That is crazy. There'd be one thing, oh, this is classless, but I'm not surprised, and ended it there. But he added the line, Russell Wilson, nice guy Russ, didn't realize you're still bounty hunting, which, for those that may not remember, Sean Payton, Bountygate, with the New Orleans Saints, 09 season, particularly the 09 playoffs. He and his defensive coordinator, Greg Williams, intentionally trying to injure the quarterbacks for the other team. Kurt Warner got his teeth kicked in, final game of his career at New Orleans, the divisional round. Brett Favre, end of his career, got absolutely blasted by the New Orleans Saints. Took some brutal shots in that game. I don't remember if Peyton Manning took as many shots in that Super Bowl that the Saints won, but Sean Payton got a year suspension. It was a disaster. And torched Greg Williams' reputation and credibility and all. It was a mess. Bountygate. So Russell Wilson, y'all is still bounty hunting. Like, whoa, he's out here throwing low blows at the lowest point of this man's career, Sean Payton's career. Okay, I don't know. And listen, I think Sean Payton's a great coach, Hall of Fame coach, Super Bowl champion coach with the New Orleans Saints, and he's done an awesome job in Denver. But I don't know how you couldn't be on Russell's team on this. Like this goes to the lengths of, the way I view it, this ventures into bullying territory. Okay, you had your issues with Russ. That's fine. Two personalities didn't get along. That's okay. Sometimes in life, personalities don't jive. Happens all the time. There's an ugly divorce in Denver. That's pro sports. Heck, that's life. 2 years later, you're still taking shots. By the way, you've got your quarterback. We think, right? Like Bo Nix made the big fourth quarter comeback, and you've been very praiseworthy of Bo Nix and all that. You've got your guy. Russell's just been benched. Russell's his last start, who knows? It could be the last start of his career for all we know, against the Kansas City Chiefs, is airmailing guys in the end zone. And then he comes in for an injured Jackson Dart briefly against Philadelphia, and Brian Dable doesn't want Russell in the game so bad he gets in trouble for this. He's yelling at the medical tent, get Jackson Dart out here, hurry up, quit checking whatever's wrong with him, get his butt back out there, because he's so terrified of Russell being on the field. In other words, by the way, Russell Wilson has lost his last 7 starts, going back to last year in Pittsburgh, now with the Giants. Come on. You're kicking a man while he's down. You just had, and if you listen to Sean Payton, he's talking about, I used to work for the Giants, first game there after 9/11 and da-da-da. You can praise Jackson Dart. You should praise Jackson Dart. He played very well in that game. He's the reason the Giants were up as many points as they were. But you could hear the hesitation in his voice, like, should I do it? Okay. had to throw that jab in at Russ. And then after, anyway, he knew what he was doing. Listen, I can be a fan of you as far as the job you do as a coach. I think Sean Payton, I think his resume would tell you he's an awesome coach. Look at the Saints since he's left. It's been a disaster. Look at Denver since he got there. They're 5-2. They're leading the Kansas City Chiefs in the AFC West. They play great football, great on both sides of the ball. That was completely unnecessary. Like that ventures into you took a shot at Russ because you felt like it. Whatever issues you have behind the scenes, come on, man. Like the coach is supposed to be the bigger man. And Russ is a veteran. Russ is, 36, 37 years old. He's at the tail end of his career. Maturity hasn't always been like a concern for Russ. And with Sean Payton, it kind of draws you back to some of those. Obviously, Bountygate is the most flagrant example, but situations like when he took a shot at the offensive coordinator for the Jets. Oh my gosh. Nathaniel Hackett. Remember, Nathaniel Hackett was just an awful offensive coordinator with the Jets after he was fired as the head coach of the Broncos. Sean Payton was his successor, and he was taking all these shots. Nathaniel Hackett's awful, all of those things. And so when you look at that, when you look at the fact that he was, and it didn't hurt the Broncos in that game because the ball was at the 1 yard line, but after the awful pass interference call that helped, the New York Giants get to the 1 yard line to get the go-ahead touchdown with under a minute before the Broncos ended up walking it off. Sean Payton is at the 5 yard line on the field, just losing on refs. Like, if that's a lot of other coaches, if that was an Andy Reid, if that was a Sean McVay, Sean McVay literally has a guy to grab his hips and pull him back because Sean Payton always flirts with danger, flirts with the green grass, obviously. A lot of we'd have crushed Kyle Shanahan if he did that. Name the coach. We rip Sean Payton, I guess, kind of just gets away with it. Bill Belichick has done similar things. I guess he just kind of gets away with it because Super Bowl champion, older coach. We won't get him on him for that. You can be a great coach, and Sean Payton undeniably is, but that was pretty crappy. That was he didn't have to do that, and he threw a shot at Russ, and I'm not gonna lie, I loved it. Let's put up the tweet one more time. I'm sorry, I love this. Yesterday, Russell Wilson talking about Sean Payton, classless but not surprised. Didn't realize you're still bounty hunting 15 plus years later through the media. # let's ride. And I did like that he threw in the let's ride because that feels kind of like self-deprecating, kind of like a. People kind of clown me for this. Like, I can laugh at it years later. It was probably a little corny. A bunch of memes were made out of it. Broncos country, let's ride. So that was a low blow by Sean Payton. It really, really was. All right, we're gonna take a break. When we come back, Bryson's best 10. A lot of change, a lot of movement this week. Similar number 1 as we had last week, but a lot of change, a lot of movement. Bryson's best 10. We'll come back after a 1 minute break on Carving Up Live. Stay tuned. Don't go anywhere. Good afternoon. I'm thrown off because of something I'm looking at. Welcome back to Carving It Up. I'm just, during that quick break, I was looking on Twitter and looking at Inside the NBA, which happened to air at the same time this show aired, which, I was kind of bummed out about. But this is interesting. I'm just looking, again, I haven't watched a single second of it, or at least I haven't heard a single second of their show. Inside the NBA. So I'm not shocked. They're in the same studios in Atlanta, which Ernie pretty much confirmed. I guess the whole crew confirmed last year. But apparently they're keeping the Inside the NBA and TNT music. The da-na-na-na-na-na-na-na. So, okay, that's good. That's great. I love it. Listen, when ESPN came in and swooped in and bought Inside the NBA, it was like, oh, thank God. Like that show's got to end on their terms. They're maybe the greatest sports show of all time. They go out on their terms, not because of a contract dispute from TNT, because they won't keep the NBA, which outside of that and superhero movies, the only thing people watch on TNT. So that was good. That was that's cool. I'm glad they kept the music. I'm glad they're in the same studio. So hopefully it's gonna have that same feel. Hopefully the Inside the NBA, like post game, 12:30, 1 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Hopefully there's there's the same shenanigans as always that we see. So yeah, it's the best sports show of all time, no question. Obviously the best basketball show. All right. Hopefully you stay tuned onto this show. Hopefully we can do half the job to do on Inside the NBA, because one of my favorite segments I do every week on Wednesday, Bryson's Best 10. I rank my top 10 teams in the National Football League. So without further ado, let's get the background music going. Here we go. All right, we will start Bryson's Best 10 Week 8. We will start with the 10th best team in the National Football League. It is the Green Bay Packers. The Packers are the 10th best team in the National Football League, and here is why. You must be thinking, wait a second. The number one seed in the NFC, you've got them at 10? I will say now what I said on Monday's show. If not for Micah Parsons, and you got to say, well, Micah Parsons on the team, what do you expect him to do? He's going to make plays. If not for Micah Parsons, the Packers are probably sitting here today at 3-3. Because if he doesn't make the play on Dak Prescott in overtime, sacking Dak as he's about to run in for the go-ahead touchdown in OT, Packers probably lose that game in OT. Best case scenario, they get the tie. As opposed to worst case is what ended up happening. And then against the Cardinals, gets 3 sacks, a third of which comes when Arizona's driving, man. They're close to the red zone. There's 30 seconds left, 2 timeouts. Oh my gosh, they're going to beat him. Our secondary's getting torched. Micah Parsons swoops in, saves the day, sacks Jacoby Brissett, and the Packers ride that to victory. Listen, this team has not played a start to finish just awesome football game. Jordan Love has been really good by the numbers this year, passing over 100, 10 touchdowns, 2 picks, came up clutch, the big 4th down conversion against Arizona last week. I love to see that as a guy who believes in Jordan Love. But the Packers, I need to see them play a great start to finish game. They might be in some trouble against my Steelers this week. To talk about that on Friday's show. At number 9, the 9th best team in the National Football League, falling a few spots from where they're at last week, it is the Seattle Seahawks. The Seahawks are the 9th best team in the National Football League, and here is why. So, listen, Seattle's defense is awesome. They're back into their secondary with guys like Nick Imanwuri, Reek Wallen, Devon Witherspoon. Hopefully he'll be back soon from injury. Their pass rush is solid. Seattle tried every which way to lose that game last week against the Houston Texans. I mean, when you lose the turnover battle, it was a 4-zip or 4-1, I forget what it was. You commit 4 turnovers against Houston, you're supposed to lose. But because Houston's offensive line is as inept as it comes and your defensive line is great, you're able to live to see another day. So, listen, Sam Darnold was a little shaky, a little off. Now, to be fair, Houston does have the best defense in the NFL, so that's going to come with the territory. But Jackson Smith in Jigba, this guy, he's on pace for 2,000 yards, folks. He's on pace, I think I saw today, to break Calvin Johnson's record, Megatron, 2012, for the most receiving yards in a single NFL season. This guy's an absolute beast, is one of the fastest players in the NFL, great route runner. Him and Darnold just have this great rapport, great connection. He's absolutely amazing. Mike McDonald's done a great job coaching the defense as the head coach of this team. Clint Kubiak's done an unbelievable job with the offense. Seattle's a good team, but I didn't like what I saw on Monday night against Houston. They still fall a few spots, but I still think Seattle's a good team. At number 8, similar to Green Bay, back on the list for the first time in a few weeks, it is the Denver Broncos. The Broncos are the 8th best team in the National Football League, and here is why. So when you talk about Denver, you talk about a team that is Jekyll and Hyde offensively. I mean, this is a squad that obviously was down 17-3 against Philadelphia after 3 quarters, looks inept on that side of the ball, and then rips off 18 unanswered to come back and win in Philadelphia, give the Eagles their first loss of the year. You talk about a situation, obviously on Sunday, down 19-0 in the third quarter, 26-8 with 6 minutes to go, and he reeled off 33 on the, not unanswered, but 33 points in the fourth quarter to come back and win that football game. It's the deep ball doesn't seem to be working at all times between Bo Nix, Courtland Sutton, but they're able to make those connections late on some of those intermediate routes. Denver has, to me, no question, the best offensive and defensive line combos in the league. I mean, you talk about their offensive line, guys like Garrett Bowles, McGlinchey, the defensive line, Zach Allen, Nick Benito is a monster Denver leads the NFL in sacks coming after the quarterback. The only issue is with Bo Nix, the Denver Broncos, I believe I saw the stat today, are 2-8 when the other team scores over 20 points. So in other words, the defense has to be amazing in order for them to win these games. Obviously, Sunday notwithstanding. Denver's an excellent roster. They're going to be a player in the AFC. They are the 8th best team in the National Football League. Up one spot from last week, a team that just keeps surprising us, as I talked about with Josh earlier. It is the New England Patriots. The Patriots are the 7th best team in the National Football League, and here's why. So when you talk about the Patriots, you obviously got to talk about Drake May, and again, show what he did on Sunday against the Titans. 2 touchdowns, no picks. Again, you see all the numbers there. It's the fact that first Patriots quarterback to throw 20 or more passes with a completion percentage of 90 or more percent. First Patriots quarterback. Brady didn't even do that. Okay, so about his athleticism that he brings to the table, the efficiency, 6 consecutive games for Drake May with a passer rating over 100. Had a rough game to start against the Raiders. Since then, it's been absolutely amazing. The mobility is there. The arm strength. The throw he made to Booty against the New Orleans Saints was unbelievable. The kid is incredibly talented. The Patriots defense dealing with injuries, so that's a bit of a concern moving forward. But Vrabel gets the most out of that group. Hopefully, Christian Gonzalez, those injuries aren't going to continue to repeat themselves over and over. And here they are, leading the AFC East, 4-game winning streak over the vaunted Buffalo Bills. The Patriots are the 7th best team in the National Football League. At number 6, down 4 spots from last week from the 2 spot, it is the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. The Bucs are the 6th best team in the National Football League, and here is why. So, listen, with Tampa, okay, fine, you lose to the Detroit Lions. That in and of itself is not the sole reason why I dropped them. Again, you lost, you only scored 9 points. It's the fact that, oh my God, now Mike Evans is gone for most, if not all, of the rest of the regular season with obviously the concussion, but the broken collarbone, which means that the 1,000-yard streak, 1,000-yard season streak comes to an end for Mike Evans, which is a real bummer. You would have wanted him to at least be able to dictate whether that streak came to an end or not. Emeka Egbuka dealing with his own injuries. He's back. Bucky Irving, Todd Bowles already announced he's out for this week. Baker Mayfield, who still, to me, is firmly in the MVP race. Of the 5 Bucs wins, 4 have come off of game-winning drives, dealing with the injuries that Tampa's dealt with. The fact of the matter is, against Detroit in a beat-up secondary, really struggled. Threw some hospital balls, got some guys just crushed out there. There was overthrown guys, which is kind of off of his game. So I think Tampa's going to bounce back. They're going to be fine in the long run, but not the most impressive performance, certainly against the Detroit Lions. The Bucs are the 6th best team in the National Football League. At number 5, up 2 spots from last week, the defending Super Bowl champion Philadelphia Eagles. The Eagles are the 5th best team in the National Football League, and here's why. So there's no question Sunday was a must-win type of game. I have a rule on this show that if you lose 3 straight games, I cannot consider you a Super Bowl contender. You lose a game, it's fine. It's the NFL, it happens. No one's the 72 Dolphin. But then you lose a second game, okay, maybe there's an issue. If you lose a 3rd straight game knowing, hey, we got to get this game, get back on track, how do I believe that you can win 3 or 4 straight consecutive games in the postseason? So Philadelphia got the win on Sunday against Minnesota. It was huge. And Jalen Hurts, by the way, shout out to Pamela Hurts, a friend of the show, who responded to my TikTok that I did on her son yesterday. So shout out to the Hurts family. But her son, Jalen, crushed it against the Vikings in a perfect game. 3 pass touchdowns, no picks, 82% completion, 326 pass yards, a passer rating that was, perfect. 158.3, 95 QBR. And again, I threw that little nugget there at the bottom. -10 rushing yards, because he's not just a beneficiary of the tush push, and that's the only reason he's elite. Guys, he's got a 16-1 total touchdown to interception ratio, which leads the National Football League. And he's doing this, by the way, with Saquon Barkley. This is part of the reason Philly is not higher than 5, being an absolute no-show this year. 22nd rush yards, 27th in yards per game, tied for 42nd in yards per carry, 17th in rush touchdowns, and Saquon Barkley has yet to rip off a 20-yard run this season. It felt like he did that 5 times against the Rams last year. He might have been 5 times against the Rams. Just torched them. So Philly's got to get their running game going. A.J. Brown, there's still more shenanigans with him on social media, but he's exceptionally talented. They've gotten him and Devontae Smith more involved on the deep passing game, which is something Jalen has gotten demonstrably better at over the years. Philadelphia Eagles, again, some improvements I need to see from their defense. They are able to get Brandon Graham back, so that helps. The Eagles are the 5th best team in the National Football League. Up 1 spot from last week, it is the Los Angeles Rams. The Rams are the 4th best team in the National Football League, and here is why. So without Puka Nacua, I thought they were potentially in some danger in London against the Jacksonville Jaguars. Jags are obviously very comfortable overseas in London. And Matthew Stafford responds by throwing not 1, not 2, not 3, not 4, but 5 touchdown passes to beat Jacksonville. This is a guy who has, again, if you told me that this guy had an injury before the season and I didn't know any better, wouldn't have believed you. He's been unbelievable. He's in the MVP conversation, doing it without Puka Nacua, Devontae Adams with 3 touchdown receptions. This Rams defensive line, Byron Young is second in the NFL in sacks to Brian Burns. He's been fantastic. Jared Verse is a monster off the edge as well. This is one of the more talented teams in football. I think they have the second best coach in football in Sean McVay, and they are absolutely a true Super Bowl contender. The Rams are the 4th best team in the National Football League. At number 3, they continue to shock us. Up 1 spot from last week, it is the Indianapolis Colts. The Colts are the 3rd best team in the National Football League, and here's why. So on my MVP ladder yesterday, I said, okay, you got 2 candidates. Only team with 2 candidates. Daniel Jones, Jonathan Taylor. Jonathan Taylor, potentially, who knows, could break LaDainian Tomlinson's record from, I believe that was 2006, if I'm not mistaken, for the most rushing touchdowns in a season. This is a guy who is leading the NFL in rushing. And Daniel Jones, it's not like he's playing this game manager role with Alec Pierce and more in the tight end. And, what's his name? Michael Pittman Jr., he got 15 touchdown passes on the year, which I believe equals or is close to equaling his total in 2022. That got him the big contract from the New York Giants. So he's got the deep ball rolling. This Colts defense coached by Lou Anarumo, funny, Bengals. He wasn't the problem. Your personnel is the problem. He's been absolutely phenomenal. The Colts pass rush secondary is excellent. Colts, I get it. They have the best record in football. The only reason I don't raise them a little bit higher is because, hey, this is the first time we've seen them kind of explode and be an excellent team. The 2 teams above them, we have, in one case, championship pedigree, in the other, they've been sniffing it for a while. So the Colts are the 3rd best team in the National Football League. At number 2, up 1 spot from last week, it is the Detroit Lions. The Lions are the 2nd best team in the National Football League. And before I tell you why, Dan Campbell, what did y'all do against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers on Monday Night Football?
Kneecap.
The kneecaps were indeed bitten on Monday night, in a 24-9 win over my 6th-ranked team, Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So the fact that Detroit did this without a number of their defensive starters out, particularly in the back end, Brian Branch suspended, so they're beaten to death with injuries. Offensively, outside of a couple of big Jahmyr Gibbs runs, and Jahmyr Gibbs is by the week, he is a fantasy darling. He's awesome. Aside from a couple of big runs from him, I didn't think the Lions offense played that well. The offensive line at times struggled, but still, you've got Penei Sewell, you've got some of the better offensive line in the league. They're excellent in that, up front in that regard. And as I said yesterday, Dan Campbell continues to prove, as important as the coordinators were, as good as Ben Johnson was and Aaron Glenn was, it's the standard, it's the culture that this guy sets. It's the acquisitions and the moves that Brad Holmes, the general manager, makes that has put this team in position to compete year after year over the last 3 seasons. If their defense shows any semblance of, they could be a competent defense. If Aiden Hutchinson continues to dominate the way that he has, oh boy, this team could maybe even be scarier than they were a year ago when they were 15-2 with a bad defense. So we'll see how the Lions continue to progress, but I think they're absolutely today the best team in the NFC. The Detroit Lions are the 2nd best team in the National Football League, and that obviously leaves number 1 back-to-back weeks. The best team in the National Football League is the Kansas City Chiefs. The Chiefs are the best team in the National Football League, and here is why. So, since Xavier Worthy came back from injury in Week 4, they have yet to not score 30 points. Now they've got Rashee Rice back in the lineup. He had 2 touchdowns against the Vegas Raiders. You talk about a situation where now all of a sudden, the 2023 receiving core in Kansas City led the league in drops. The 2024 receiving core ravaged by injuries. Now this year, okay, you got Rice, you got Worthy, you got Hollywood Brown, you got Juju Smith-Schuster, you've got Tyquan Thornton. And by the way, it's like a nice side piece, nice cherry on top. You've got Travis Kelce, who's the greatest pass catcher in the history of the NFL postseason. So, past his prime, but shows more explosiveness than he showed a year ago. The Chiefs' offensive line is better. Hopefully, knock on wood, wishing nothing but the best to Josh Simmons, the left tackle. Whatever is going on in his personal life, he's away from the team. His backup, his replacement, Moore, has been great. And this Kansas City defense, Chris Jones, Karlaftis, Nick Bolton, and oh my gosh, what's my man's name? Trent McDuffie, one of the better corners in football. It's the best coach team in football with Andy Reid, Steve Spagnuolo, best quarterback in football, Mount Rushmore guy, and Patrick Mahomes. And he's got the best receiving core of his career. Yeah, that's terrifying. I said it on Monday's show. I'll say it again today. I don't think the Kansas City Chiefs are going to lose 2 games the rest of the year. I really, really don't. The Chiefs are the best team in the National Football League. And we can go and show you my list. Bryce's best 10, week 8. So from 10-1, Packers weren't ranked last week. They're at number 10. I need to see them play more consistent football. Seahawks down 3 spots to number 9. Broncos unranked last week. They're at number 8. Patriots up a spot to 7. Bucks down 4 spots to 6. Eagles up 2 spots to 5. Rams up a spot to 4. Colts up a spot to 3. Lions up a spot to 2. The Chiefs stay where they're at number 1. So there you go. That's Bryson's best 10 for week 8. And before we get out of here, sorry, I thought I heard the music for Bryce's best 10 still playing. Okay, before we get out of here, we got a big-time Thursday night match. I'm very, very excited for this one, featuring the Minnesota Vikings and the Los Angeles Chargers to kick off Week 8. So the Chargers at home, 3.5-point favorite. Both teams coming off of pretty tough losses. For the Vikings, Carson Wentz was just an abject disaster. I've never seen a guy who, this man's in year 10 and still cannot read an NFL defense to save his life. He misses some of the simplest check downs and reads and just efficient plays in football. He can't get it done. And so, listen, there's a TJ Hawkinson catch that should have been a catch last week against the Eagles that wasn't. Regardless, Aaron Jones, though, back off of injury, the former Packer, really effective last year in Minnesota. He is back for this team off of injured reserve, which helps them tremendously. As for the Chargers, got blown out pretty much from start to finish. The score does not indicate how much the Colts dominated them in SoFi Stadium last week, 38-24. Justin Herbert threw 2 picks, one of which a brutal one in the end zone. I look at this, though. There's a certain aspect that when a team, I've always said when a team gets humiliated on prime time, it's like, man, take them to cover whatever the spread is the following week, unless they're just an awful team. Obviously, the Chargers were not in prime time, but there's an element of when this is a well-coached team with Jim Harbaugh, with Jesse Minter, back them to play much better, to have their guys much more ready to go right off the bat in the next week. Chargers have lost 3 or 4 games. They need to get a W. They need to keep pace with Denver and try their best to stay ahead of Kansas City, the red-hot Chiefs in the AFC West. I like them in this match. I think they're going to beat the Vikings tomorrow night. They'll cover the 3.5-point spread, 27-23. Chargers over the Vikings, 27-23. I think you want to see a bounce back from Justin Herbert, and I think you will see that from the LA Chargers. And with that, that is all the time we have for today's show. Appreciate everybody stopping by as always. Be sure to catch Carving Up Live on Friday at 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific time, right here on YouTube as well as on X, Instagram, and on Facebook. Check the podcast out anywhere you get your podcasts via the Gryd Network. Of course, if you want to check out my takes prior to Carving It Up, you can check out the Bryson Carver Show, which airs on 89.5 The Edge via the TuneIn app this Friday at noon Eastern to 2 noon to 2 Eastern time, 9 to 11 Pacific time, or is that bad math? 9 to 11 Pacific time. Sorry, it was bad math for a second there, folks. But for those that are not able to find the channel via the TuneIn app, no worries. I'll put the link to that on my IG stories as I do before every show. It's my radio show. So check that out, the Bryson Carver Show via 89.5 The Edge. And of course, this show, Carving It Up, will be back on Friday, 6 Eastern through Pacific. And by the way, for some college football stuff, myself, Tim Barnard, Arthur Hurst, the Saturday morning tailgate, which is obviously this Saturday at 10 a.m. Eastern, 7 a.m. Pacific time, live on the Gryd Network. Give our top 25s. We have special curated segments. Arthur's a Buckeyes fan. We got Buckeyes breakfast. I'm a Vols fan. It's just a continuation of this show because we get the Vol View on Saturday morning tailgate as well. And Tim, we forgive him for it. Nobody's perfect. He is a Gators fan. Gator City airs on the show as well. We've got the cover crew. We've got, obviously, our game day picks talking about some of the biggest headlines in college football. You're going to want to stay tuned for all of that Saturday morning tailgate every Saturday at 10 a.m. Eastern, 7 a.m. Pacific time to kick off your college football Saturday. With that, hope everybody has a great week. We will see you guys on Friday. Stay safe out there, everybody. God bless y'all. Peace out. The Dubs look good. Thanks so much for watching the show on YouTube, and be sure to go click that big red subscribe button and check out the other clips and full shows from Carving It Up Live, as well as our other incredible content creators here on the Gryd Network.